You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV from Toronto. This is Mohammed Maxwell Hassan, and here's what's making news. Church's homophobic post called out by LGBTQ community members. Powwow Festival at Oromocto First Nation draws Atlantic Canadians. National Council of Canadian Muslims inaugurates Saskatchewan Office. Muslims gather from all over the world to perform Hajj. And now the details. A member of the Prince Edward Islands LGBTQ plus community is speaking out against Summerside Catholic Church's social media post, calling it, quote, homophobic. Stephen McIsaac, who is also a member of the community church for years, says that the church told its followers to attend a webinar on June 17th. The webinar offered advice to parents and guardians to shield their children during Pride Month, followed by Wilna Van Beek's interview. Beek shares her journey of suppressing her orientation by seeking refuge in the church's teachings. According to McIsaac, the post favors conversion therapy. Conversion therapy, which suppresses gender liberation, has been banned in Prince Edward Island since 2019. Oromocto First Nation New Brunswick invited Indigenous community members and Atlantic Canadians for the 7th annual Powwow festivities. Local dignitaries, including Lieutenant Governor New Brunswick Brenda Murphy, Mayor Town of Oromocto Bob Powell, and Mary Wilson were welcomed to the event. Oromocto First Nations Chief Shelley Sabates said that it was heartwarming to see the love of culture amongst the children and youth. Sabates said that the Oromocto welcomes neighbors so that they can witness the Indigenous culture firsthand. During the celebrations, thousands of attendees had discovered the food, wares, and traditions of the First Nation. The National Council of Canadian Muslims announced the inauguration of its Saskatchewan office on Saturday through its official Twitter handle. Senior Legal Counsel Daniel Cullen will overlook the functions of the new office. Cullen has rich experience in serving both the public and private legal sectors. He has worked previously with the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission as well as Canada's Department of Justice as a legal expert. Cullen is also associated with the town's Islamic community for several years, making him the ideal candidate for leading the new chapter. NCCM is a non-profit Muslim advocacy group that works to protect the rights of Muslims and other minorities across Canada. Thousands of pilgrims have arrived in Saudi Arabia to perform this year's Hajj in the holy city of Mecca. The Saudi authorities welcome foreigners to perform the Hajj this year after a 2-year closure due to the pandemic. This year, around 1 million fully vaccinated Muslims will be performing Hajj compared to around 2.5 million in the year 2019. The Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. A Muslim is required to perform the Hajj at least once in their lifetime if they have the means to do so. And that's all for the news. A tweet is brewing conflict in India. Muslim journalist and fact-checker Mohammed Zubair was arrested for a past tweet in 2018. Joining us now is the campaign manager at Justice for All Canada, TAZEEN Hassan. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Hassan.
Mashallah. Yeah, so this tweet is erupting. Could you kindly enlighten us as to why is this happening?
Basically, this was an 2018 tweet, March 2018 tweet by Mohammed Zubair. Mohammed Zubair was a former software engineer who is now a journalist and a fact checker. He's running a site Alt News, and he's basically exposing the fake news by the BJP government. BJP government is committing a genocide in India, and they are using fake news to promote hatred against the Indian Muslims and the other minorities. So basically, the actual crime of Mohammed Zubair was not the tweet, but his exposition of the fake news. And especially his last tweet, actually, Mohammed Zubair actually exposed Nupur Sharma, who gave blasphemous remarks against the Prophet. And this produced the largest diplomatic backlash for Indian government since its independent history. More than 12 Gulf countries, they actually protested officially with the Indian government and asked for an apology. OIC actually reacted on this on his tweet of exposition of Nupur Sharma actually. But
Is
the
this
actual tweet on which he has been arrested was a 2018 tweet, and it was based on a 1983 Indian film. So the joke was there in 2018, 1983, about 40 years back, Indian movie, and it was already printed in mainstream media in English in Indian newspapers, but nobody was arrested on the basis of that joke. But Zubair was arrested, and then it was just. So it seems that it is just a fabricated case against him, and
I
he
see.
has about Indian government actually signed about 5 to 6 FIRs against Zubair before this, and
I
his
see.
actual crime was not this tweet, but actually the exposition of the fake news.
I see, Sister TAZEEN. Now, is this an isolated incident? Is this only happening with this particular fact checker, or is this?
Definitely not. Indian government is Hinduizing democracy. They are using fascist techniques. They are committing genocide. They are persecuting minorities. And whoever is supporting the victims, whoever is reporting the human rights violations, is under either he is harassed or he is threatened or he's in jail, landed in jail. So basically, many of the journalists, about 35 journalists in Kashmir, are harassed and arrested. There are human rights defenders like Tista Stalwart, who is recently arrested because she supported the victims of Gujarat massacre in 2022. She actually filed a case in the court, and she was giving aid to Ehsan Jafri's daughter, who was killed in the massacre. He was an MLA from Gujarat who was killed in the massacre. So many human rights defenders are either arrested, and there is no backlash from the opposition parties, of BJP. This is civil society and journalists and human rights defenders that are actually giving some backlash to Indian government, who are struggling
I
to
see.
keep the constitutional rights
I
of the
see.
minorities,
Makes
of
sense.
Dalits, of Christians, of Sikhs, and of Muslims. So basically, Indian government is definitely harassing
So,
all these people.
so, sister, in your estimation, why is this happening now?
Since 2014, when the BJP government actually assumed power, they have been persecuting minorities, like lynchings of Muslims and Dalits, cases against the journalists, casing against the human rights defenders. No other opposition party is reacting on BJP tactics, fascist techniques, but actually the civil society, human rights defenders, journalists are struggling against the ruling party, against this genocide of Indian Muslims and persecution of minorities. So basically, since 2019, BJP came assumed power again in this election, and they have accelerated this genocide preparation actually.
I see. So now, in this case, with all this, viewers might be very, very concerned. Now, in your estimation, what are some actionable techniques or things that anyone sitting at home listening to this, what can they do?
Uh, Canadian audience who are listening to us, who are watching our show, I will say that they should support Justice for All Canada's efforts. They should sign the petition. Parliamentary, we have filed a parliamentary petition, who is sponsored by the MP member of Parliament of my own riding here in Edmonton, Greece Park. He has filed a petition, parliamentary petition, in against against the genocide of Indian Muslims. So I will request everyone who is watching this show to support the efforts of JFA, to basically sign the petition, and to support us financially, because finances are required. Definitely, our campaigns against the Indian Muslim genocide and against the other campaigns, as Sri Lanka and Uyghur campaign and other campaigns, are heavily, I mean, they are really underfunded. So we need this Zulhaj. We are having a fundraising program. So please support us financially, and please sign the petition. It will be removed from the Parliament website on 15th of July. So we need to show the Parliament that Canadian Muslims and larger Canadian society is concerned about the genocide in India.
So there is
So
a tight deadline. So So, according to you, what would you say would be the ideal result? What would be the ideal picture or vision that you could say, if everything is successful and everything is going according to plan, what would that look like?
It is very hard to stop India, because all Western countries and the United Nations and the global institutions, they buy the Indian narrative that India is a democracy. In reality, India is a fascist state. India is basically. So ideally, what we can do is we can basically persuade the Canadian government to put pressure on India, to put pressure on global institutions. What we can do here in Canada is to pressurize our governments not to do trade. If they do trade, they should. Human rights must be on the agenda, must be on the table. Human rights talk must be on the table before the trade talks. They can sign the petitions, parliamentary petitions. They can meet their parliament. They can phone. They can call the parliamentarian and tell that we are concerned about the Indian Muslim genocide, the people. So ideal condition would be that Canadian Prime Minister, Canadian foreign policy is based on human rights. I mean, human rights should be a priority.
I see. So now for Justice for All Canada, how can people contact or reach out?
They can go on saveindia.com.ca. They can go. Our audience can go on join saveindia.ca and can sign the petition there. They can financially support Justice for All efforts, and it is heavily needed. This month, JFA Canada team have been very productive. We had a Save India seminar, webinar with very distinguished panel. We had a press conference that was basically attended by our executive director, Taha Ghayur, against the Palestinians, against the Canadians who are imprisoned in Syria. 44 Canadians are imprisoned in Syria. 26 of them are children under 7. So we attended actually a seminar, a press conference. And then we have the greatest achievement this month is that the Canadian Parliament actually invited Taha Ghayur, our executive director, who gave testimony against the persecution of minorities and against the genocide of India. We were the only human rights organization in Canada which was invited by the Parliament. They were discussing the Indo-Canadian trade, actually. So we give testimony there. And then we have an upcoming Zulhaj campaign, fundraising campaign during the first 10 days of Zulhaj. And we know that these 10 days are very important for the Ummah. So we would request all those people who are watching us to donate graciously in these blessed months.
Thank you, sister. Blessed days. Thank you, Sister TAZEEN. Really appreciate your taking the time, and we thank you so much for sharing your insight and sharing the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Brother Hassan.
That's all for now. Get more informed by supporting Canadian Muslim News by subscribing. Stay tuned for the next episode. Assalamu alaikum.